The natural world is governed by ancient, unyielding laws, rules written in the language of survival, adaptation, and instinct. These laws have shaped the lives of every creature for millennia, long before the first human settlements appeared on the horizon. In the heart of the wilderness, every rustle in the underbrush, every distant call and every shifting shadow is a message, a warning or an invitation, understood by those who have always called these places home. Yet, despite the seeming separation, the boundary between the world of humans and the world of wild animals is not a fixed line. It is a living, breathing frontier, one that moves with the seasons, the weather, and the relentless expansion of human ambition. Here at the edge where manicured lawns meet tangled undergrowth, the destinies of man and beast are inextricably linked. As towns grow into cities and neighborhoods sprawl outward, the forests, grasslands, and wetlands that once stretched unbroken for miles are carved into fragments. Bulldozers clear ancient trees, and the calls of songbirds are replaced by the hum of engines. Each new road, each freshly poured foundation is a silent invitation for conflict, a challenge to the creatures who have always roamed these lands. Inevitably, these shifting borders lead to encounters that are as unpredictable as they are dramatic. Sirens wail at the edge of the woods, yellow tape flutters in the breeze, and the flashing lights of emergency vehicles illuminate scenes where the wild and the civilized have collided. News crews gather, eager to capture the aftermath of a moment when two worlds met with tragic consequences. These incidents are rarely the result of malice. Instead, they are the product of misunderstanding. A deer pausing at the edge of a backyard, a set of human footprints crossing those of a coyote on a muddy trail. Each encounter is a story of two species, each following its own logic, suddenly forced to share the same space. The stories that emerge from these encounters are often somber, echoing through living rooms as families gather to watch the evening news. A wildlife warning sign, battered by wind and rain, stands as a silent testament to the dangers that lurk just beyond the tree line. These stories remind us with chilling clarity of the raw, untamed power that still exists at the edges of our world. Every year, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, headlines tell of encounters that ended in fear, injury, or worse. The details are as varied as the landscapes themselves, but the underlying theme is always the same. The wild is never as far away as we imagine. In the Pacific Northwest, where ancient pines rise like silent sentinels and mist clings to the forest floor, hikers sometimes find themselves face to face with black bears. The air is thick with the scent of moss and earth, and every step off the trail is a step deeper into the unknown. A single snap of a twig can bring a man and a bear into sudden, heart-pounding proximity. In the sun-drenched swamps of Florida, alligators glide silently beneath the surface, their eyes just above the waterline. Here, a fisherman casting his line at dawn may not notice the ripple that signals an ancient predator's approach. The boundary between safety and danger is as thin as a blade of grass. Even in the heart of suburbia, the wild finds its way in. A deer, startled by the sound of a garage door, freezes in a patch of clover. A bear, drawn by the scent of garbage, overturns cans in the moonlight, its massive form a shadow among the streetlights. These are not distant threats, but neighbours, uninvited but ever present. The reasons for these encounters are as complex as the creatures themselves. Sometimes a man walking through the woods is mistaken for prey by a mountain lion, his silhouette triggering instincts honed over thousands of years. Other times a wild animal is startled by a sudden movement, reacting out of fear rather than aggression. Territorial disputes are common, especially where human trails cut through established animal pathways. A coyote defending its ground may see a jogger as an intruder. The scent of sweat and the rhythm of footsteps are foreign signals in a world ruled by scent and sound. Few forces in nature are as powerful as a parent's instinct to protect its young. A male bear, sensing a threat to his cubs, will charge without hesitation, his massive frame crashing through underbrush. The encounter is over in seconds, but the consequences can last a lifetime. Hunger and fear drive animals to take risks they might otherwise avoid. A coyote, thin and desperate, prowls the edge of a playground in search of scraps. A raccoon, startled by a sudden noise, darts across a busy road, its instincts at war with the unfamiliar dangers of the human world. To truly understand these incidents, experts study every detail. A wildlife biologist kneels in the mud, examining tracks for clues. A conservationist installs signs, hoping to guide both man and beast towards safer paths. Their work is a testament to the belief that knowledge is the first step towards coexistence. The narrative of human versus animal is a simplification that does justice to neither side. In truth, these are stories of circumstance, of behavior shaped by environment and necessity, and often of human error, missteps that can have devastating consequences. Imagine a hiker, drawn by curiosity, stepping off the trail to photograph a bear cub. The cub's mother, hidden in the shadows, watches every move. In that instant, the hiker has crossed an invisible line, one that separates safety from danger. Or consider the man who slips into a misty lake at sunrise, the water cool and still. Beneath the surface, unseen eyes watch. The swimmer's presence is a disturbance in a world where silence is survival, and the consequences can be swift and severe. Sometimes the line is crossed with the best of intentions. A resident, hoping to glimpse the wild up close, tosses food to an alligator from his porch. The animal learns to associate humans with easy meals, a lesson that can end in tragedy for both. These actions, however innocent they may seem, disrupt the delicate balance of instinct and behavior that has guided these animals for generations. A startled animal may flee or it may fight. Either way, the outcome is unpredictable. The aftermath is often grim. Animal control officers arrive, capturing the animal involved. In many cases, the creature is euthanized, its fate sealed by a single, fateful encounter. The cost of these moments is measured not just in human injury, but in the loss of wild lives. These events force us to confront uncomfortable truths about our own actions and assumptions. A man stands at his window watching a fox slip through the shadows. He wonders what role he has played in bringing the wild so close to home. The purpose of exploring these encounters is not to inspire fear or sensationalize tragedy. It is to educate, to raise awareness, and to foster a deeper understanding of the forces at play when man and animal meet. By examining each incident in detail, piecing together the clues, analyzing the footage, and mapping the patterns, we begin to unravel the complex web of factors that lead to these tragic outcomes. Through careful study and education, we can learn to recognize the signs, respect the boundaries, and take responsibility for our actions. A ranger demonstrates the safe distance to keep from wildlife, while a family reads the posted warnings before venturing onto a trail. In these moments, we are reminded that the wild is not an adversary to be conquered, but a force to be understood and respected. The sight of a lone elk on a distant ridge or the quiet observation of a fox at dusk inspires awe and humility. This understanding is essential if we hope to share our spaces in peace. Only by respecting the fragile frontier between our worlds can we prevent future tragedies and ensure that the stories we tell are ones of coexistence, not conflict. Deep within the human mind lies a powerful, often perilous illusion, the belief that a unique connection forged through care and affection can somehow tame the raw, unpredictable nature of a wild predator. This conviction that a bond of trust can override millions of years of instinct has led to some of the most haunting and preventable tragedies in the history of human-animal encounters. The yearning to bridge the gap between human and beast, to domesticate what was never meant to be tamed, has driven people to bring wild animals into their homes and lives. These stories are not just about companionship, but about a deep-seated desire to prove that love and understanding can conquer nature's most formidable instincts. Many who raise wild animals from infancy develop a profound emotional attachment. They bottle-feed cubs, nurture them through sickness and watch them grow, all the while convincing themselves that their devotion has erased the animal's primal urges. The animal, in their eyes, becomes less a creature of the wild and more a beloved companion, almost human. For these individuals, the animal is not a 400-pound gorilla or a 350-pound tiger, but a cherished member of the family. They share meals, play games, and celebrate milestones together, blurring the line between wildness and domesticity. This tendency to project human emotions and intentions onto animals, anthropomorphism, creates a comforting illusion of safety. Yet beneath this fragile veil, the animal's true nature remains, waiting for the moment when instinct will override affection. Take, for example, the tragic story of Thomas Bollen in Calhoun, Georgia. From the time Raffi, a silverback gorilla, was a tiny infant, Thomas became his sole caretaker. He fed Raffi by hand, played with him in the backyard, and even taught him simple tricks. Over the years, their bond deepened, and Thomas came to believe that Raffi saw him not as a threat, but as a father figure, a protector and friend. Despite repeated warnings from wildlife experts and clear signs of Raffi's growing strength and unpredictable moods, Thomas continued to enter the enclosure without any protective barriers. He dismissed the gorilla's aggressive displays as mere playfulness, convinced that their relationship was unbreakable. On a warm June afternoon in 2015, Thomas hosted a cookout for friends and neighbors. Eager to showcase the trust he had built with Raffi, he invited his guests to watch as he hand-fed the gorilla fresh peaches. The air was filled with laughter and awe as Raffi gently took the fruit from Thomas's hand, a living testament to the power of their bond, or so it seemed. In a split second, the atmosphere changed. Raffi, suddenly agitated by the crowd and the unfamiliar energy, lashed out with the full force of his wild instincts. The powerful animal struck Thomas, fatally injuring him before anyone could intervene. The scene turned from celebration to chaos, a stark reminder of the ever-present danger lurking beneath the surface. Thomas's unwavering belief in their special relationship could not change the fundamental nature of the animal he loved. Raffi was, and always would be, a wild creature, his instincts as ancient and unyielding as the forests from which his ancestors came. The aftermath was one of heartbreak and reflection. Friends and family gathered outside the enclosure, leaving flowers and lighting candles in memory of a man whose affection blinded him to the reality of the animal's nature. His story stands as a somber warning. Love alone cannot erase the wildness within. A similar tragedy unfolded in the remote hills of Oakhurst, California. Mario Duca, a retired chef with a passion for wildlife, found an orphaned black bear cub on his property. Naming him Bobo, Mario took the cub in, raising him as one might a dog or a child. He bottle-fed Bobo, played with him in the yard, and introduced him to friends and neighbors as a gentle giant. Over the years, Mario allowed Bobo to roam freely across his land. He fed the bear human food, sandwiches, fruit, even the occasional beer. Believing that their daily interactions had erased any threat, Bobo became a fixture at family gatherings, his massive presence both awe-inspiring and, to Mario, completely safe. On Mario's birthday in May 2016, friends and family gathered for a backyard celebration. As a special treat, Mario approached Bobo with a slice of birthday cake, eager to share the moment with his unusual companion. Guests watched in fascination as the bear sniffed the cake, its powerful jaws inches from Mario's hand. But to Bobo, Mario was not a friend or a father figure. He was a source of food, and in that moment, a potential rival. The bear's instincts, honed over thousands of years, saw only the opportunity and the threat, not the man who had raised him. In a sudden, violent outburst, Bobo attacked. The party erupted into panic, as Mario was mauled, fatally wounded before help could arrive. The celebration became a scene of horror, the cost of misplaced trust paid in the most devastating way. By feeding Bobo and allowing him to become comfortable around people, Mario had unintentionally stripped away the bear's natural fear of humans. What he saw as affection the bear interpreted through the lens of instinct, creating a situation that was both dangerous and unpredictable. These stories are echoed in other tragedies, such as the case of Derek Brute in Wyoming, who raised a Barbary lion from a cub. Derek's pride in his bond with the lion was well known. He would often invite neighbours to witness the animal's gentle behaviour, convinced that his love had tamed the beast. But these are not tales of wild animals suddenly turning evil. They are stories of human misjudgment, of men who believed that kindness and familiarity could override the deep, ancient programming of a predator. The belief that one can reach across the chasm of instinct and forge a bond strong enough to suppress a predator's true nature is a gamble with the highest possible stakes. For every moment of peace there is the ever-present risk of disaster. And these animals were never meant to be pets. They were wild creatures, kept in environments that could never truly satisfy their needs or suppress their instincts. Their wildness was not erased, only hidden, waiting for the moment to re-emerge. The tragic outcomes of these stories serve as a painful lesson. True respect for wildlife means acknowledging and honoring their wildness, not trying to love it out of them. Only by keeping a respectful distance can we hope to coexist safely with nature's most powerful creatures. There is a unique thrill in venturing into the untamed expanses of the American wilderness. National parks sprawl across millions of acres, their dense forests and rugged coastlines offering a profound sense of freedom and adventure. Hikers wind their way through ancient groves where sunlight filters through towering canopies, and kayakers paddle along misty shores. The only sounds the rhythmic splash of water and the distant call of a loon. These moments connect us to a world that existed long before cities and highways, a world ruled by the rhythms of nature. In these wild places, every step is an invitation to witness life as it unfolds, unfiltered and raw. Herds of elk graze in open meadows, their antlers catching the morning light, while eagles soar overhead, scanning for movement below. The air is thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the distant rustle of undergrowth hints at the presence of creatures just out of sight. Yet, as we set foot on these trails or pitch our tents in remote clearings, it is vital to remember that we are visitors, temporary guests in a realm governed by its own ancient laws. The forest is not a backdrop for our adventures. It is a living, breathing world, home to countless species whose survival depends on the delicate balance of their environment. The animals that inhabit these lands are not mere attractions. Each bear, wolf, and deer is a master of survival, honed by generations of adaptation. A bear's sense of smell can detect food from miles away, while a wolf pack moves with silent coordination, each member attuned to the needs of the group. Deer graze with ears twitching, always alert to the slightest hint of danger. When humans fail to respect these instincts, when we forget that we are not the center of this world, conflict can erupt in an instant. A peaceful hike can turn into a desperate scramble for safety, or a tranquil dive can become a test of survival, all because of a single misstep or moment of carelessness. The wilderness, for all its beauty, is indifferent to human presence. Storm clouds gather over mountain peaks, casting long shadows across the land. In the forest, dangers lurk beneath the surface. Hidden roots, sudden drops, and the ever-present possibility of a predator watching from the gloom. As dusk falls, the world transforms, and the rules of survival become even more unforgiving. In May 2019, a tragedy unfolded at a remote campground near Lake Louise. The morning was quiet, the air crisp with the promise of a new day. Campers awoke to the sound of birds and the gentle lapping of water against the shore, unaware that the balance of nature had been disrupted by a series of small human mistakes. A massive grizzly bear, weighing over 650 pounds, had been drawn to the area. Its powerful frame moved silently through the trees, nose twitching as it followed the scent of food left behind by careless campers. The bear had learned that where there were humans, there was an easy meal, its natural wariness replaced by a dangerous curiosity. For this bear, the campground was no longer just a patch of forest. It had become a buffet, a place where the boundaries between wild and human had blurred. Coolers left unlatched, scraps of food forgotten on picnic tables. Each was an invitation, a lesson that humans meant food. On that fateful morning, a camper returning from the water station unknowingly crossed the bear's path. The encounter was sudden, a collision of two worlds, each following its own logic. The bear, conditioned by repeated rewards, saw an opportunity. The camper, focused on the simple task of fetching water, was caught off guard in the heart of the bear's newly claimed territory. The bear's actions were not driven by aggression, but by a learned behavior, a dangerous shift from its natural foraging patterns. Human carelessness had rewritten the rules, turning a wild animal into a persistent risk. The aftermath was sobering. Rangers closed off the site, warning signs were posted, and the forest grew quiet once more. The lesson was clear: in the wild, even the smallest oversight can have irreversible consequences. The same principles apply beneath the waves, where the rules of survival are written in currents and shadows. The ocean is a realm of constant motion, its inhabitants perfectly adapted to a world of light and darkness, hunger and caution. In April 2013, U.S. Navy diver Sergeant Daniel Walsh prepared for a routine training exercise near the Farallon Islands, a remote cluster of rocky outcrops off the California coast. The waters here are cold and unpredictable, home to elephant seals, sea lions, and most notably, great white sharks, apex predators drawn by the abundance of prey. As the exercise began, Sergeant Walsh moved with practiced efficiency, his every motion a testament to years of training. But when a regulator malfunction forced him to surface unexpectedly, he found himself alone, surrounded by the vast open ocean. Nearby, elephant seals splashed and fed, their movements attracting the attention of predators lurking below. From the depths, a great white shark caught sight of a silhouette on the surface. To the shark, the shape was familiar, a potential meal, indistinguishable from the seals it hunted. In the cold blue silence, instinct took over. The attack that followed was not an act of malice, but a tragic case of mistaken identity. In these waters, every shadow is a story, every movement a potential threat or opportunity. Despite his expertise, Sergeant Walsh was left vulnerable by a simple mechanical failure. In the predator's domain, even the most skilled can find themselves at the mercy of forces beyond their control. These stories, both on land and at sea, drive home a vital lesson. Preparation and awareness are not just recommended, they are essential. Every outdoor adventure carries risks, but knowledge and vigilance can tip the balance in our favor. Understanding animal behavior, respecting territorial boundaries, and taking proactive safety measures are the keys to coexisting with nature's most formidable inhabitants. These are not optional courtesies, but the foundation of survival in the wild. This means storing food in bear-resistant containers, hanging supplies out of reach, and never leaving scraps behind to tempt wildlife. It means staying informed about recent animal activity, reading posted warnings, and keeping a respectful distance from all wildlife. And it means understanding the unique risks of each environment, avoiding swimming in shark-inhabited waters at dawn or dusk, when visibility is low and predators are most active. To truly respect nature's territory is to move through it with humility and care, minimizing our impact, following the rules, and remembering that every action can ripple through the delicate web of life. In doing so, we honor the wild not just as a place of beauty, but as a world with its own rules deserving of our deepest respect. The boundary between the wild and the world we build is often thinner than we realize. While many dangerous encounters occur when humans venture deep into forests, mountains, or swamps, seeking adventure or solitude, there are times when the wild is forced into our world, uninvited, unexpected, and often with tragic results. Sometimes it is not the hiker or the camper who crosses the line, but the animal, driven by forces beyond its control. The wild, in these moments, spills into our neighborhoods, our streets, and even our homes. Extreme weather events, hurricanes, floods, wildfires, can devastate entire ecosystems in a matter of hours. Bulldozers and chainsaws, clearing land for new developments, erase the familiar landmarks of countless creatures. Urban sprawl, with its endless roads and subdivisions, fragments habitats that once stretched unbroken for miles. Displaced and disoriented, animals are pushed out of their natural environments and into human-populated areas. A bear, once king of the forest, now rummages through trash cans. A coyote, once a shadow in the brush, darts across a busy road. Imagine a swamp swollen by relentless rain, its banks overflowing. An alligator, a silent predator perfectly adapted to the murky waters, finds its world transformed overnight. The familiar trails and hiding spots are submerged, the prey scattered. Driven by instinct and desperation, the alligator seeks higher ground. It crawls from the flooded wetlands and by chance finds itself in the most unlikely of places. A school playground, the ground still slick with mud, the air heavy with the scent of rain and fear. In another corner of the country, a mountain lion, its territory shrinking with every new house built, prowls the edge of a suburb. Hunger gnaws at its belly. The scent of domestic animals and garbage lures it closer to the lights and sounds of human life. In these moments the animals are not invaders, they are refugees, confused, frightened, and struggling to survive in a landscape that is as alien to them as the deepest jungle is to us. Their eyes dart with anxiety, their bodies tense. Every sound is a potential threat, every movement a possible escape or a deadly mistake. These encounters are especially dangerous because they happen where we least expect them, on quiet streets, in backyards, or even inside homes. The familiar becomes the stage for the unpredictable. Places we consider safe, where children play, where families gather, suddenly become the front lines of a conflict neither side wanted. One of the most dramatic examples of this occurred in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in September 2020. The city, already battered by the relentless winds and rain of Hurricane Laura, was left reeling as floodwaters transformed neighborhoods into islands. In the chaos, an 8.5-foot alligator was swept from its home in the swamps. The animal, massive and powerful, was now adrift in a world of concrete and confusion. It found a muddy depression on the playground of Magnolia Elementary School, a patch of ground that, for a brief moment, became its refuge. As the sun broke through the clouds days later, children returned to the playground, their laughter echoing across the wet grass. The alligator, hidden and agitated, began to move toward a group of unsuspecting kids. Darnell Price, a physical education teacher, saw the danger in an instant. Without hesitation, he sprinted across the field, shouting warnings and waving his arms to draw the alligator's attention away from the children. In a split second, Price pushed a child to safety, placing himself between the predator and the students. The alligator lunged, its jaws snapping shut on Price's leg. He fought desperately, buying precious seconds for the children to escape, but suffered devastating injuries in the process. The alligator was not hunting, it was disoriented, terrified, and defending the only patch of territory it could claim in a world turned upside down by disaster. This incident, broadcast across the nation, was a stark reminder of how natural disasters can redraw the map of wildlife encounters overnight. The familiar becomes foreign, and the wild, displaced, becomes desperate. Displacement can also occur in another way, when animals escape from captivity, thrust into a world they do not understand. In August 2012, at the Wilderness Safari Park in New Mexico, a 380-pound African lion named Ulon found himself free, not by choice but by human error, a gate left unsecured by a temporary employee. Ulon wandered from the safety of his enclosure into the nearby Mesa Ridge Trail system, a network of paths winding through rugged hills and brush, popular with runners and hikers seeking solitude and challenge. On that fateful morning, Paul Reyes was running the trail with his child and a close relative. The air was crisp, the path dappled with sunlight, the only sounds the crunch of gravel and the distant call of birds. Suddenly the lion appeared, its golden mane bristling, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Paul, acting on pure instinct, shoved his child out of harm's way, placing himself between the predator and his family. Oilon, agitated and bewildered by the unfamiliar sights and sounds, lunged. Paul became the target, his selfless act saving his child but costing him dearly. Despite the efforts of emergency responders, Paul later died from his injuries. The trail, once a place of peace, became a site of tragedy and mourning. This was not the result of a wild animal defending its territory, but of a captive creature, thrust into chaos by a simple mistake, a gate left open, a lapse in vigilance. The tragedy was a direct consequence of failed safety protocols, a reminder that the line between safety and disaster is often drawn by the smallest of errors. These events reveal a critical vulnerability in our communities, a vulnerability that grows as we expand into wild spaces and as the climate grows more unpredictable. As new homes rise at the edge of forests and as storms grow fiercer, the potential for these unexpected, often tragic encounters increases. Deer wander city streets at dusk, bobcats slink across roads, and bears rifle through trash cans. Each encounter a reminder of the shifting boundaries between our world and theirs. The story of Coach Price in Louisiana led to sweeping changes in school safety protocols for flood-prone areas. Drills were updated, barriers installed, and emergency plans reviewed with new urgency. The escape of Elon the lion resulted in the passage of Paul's Law, named in honor of the man who gave his life to protect his child. The law mandated stricter security and oversight at facilities housing dangerous animals, ensuring that such a tragedy would not be repeated. Zoos and wildlife parks across the country upgraded their security, installed new locks, and trained staff to prevent future escapes. Communities gathered to mourn, holding vigils and placing flowers at the sites of tragedy. The pain of loss was matched only by the resolve to prevent it from happening again. These stories born from disaster underscore the need for proactive planning. City planners, wildlife managers, and environmental experts now meet regularly, reviewing maps and strategies to anticipate how environmental changes and human activities can push wildlife into our spaces. Only by understanding the forces that drive these encounters and by preparing for them can we hope to protect both ourselves and the wild creatures who share our world. The ocean is Earth's last great wilderness, a realm of immense beauty and raw, untamed power. Its endless blue stretches beyond the horizon, concealing mysteries and dangers that have fascinated and terrified humankind for centuries. The rhythmic crash of waves against the shore is both a lullaby and a warning, a reminder that beneath the tranquil surface lies a world governed by ancient instincts and primal forces. For many, its allure is just irresistible. The ocean calls to us with the promise of adventure, freedom, and a connection to something far greater than ourselves. Surfers, divers, and swimmers flock to the coastlines, seeking recreation and a connection with the marine world. Each person who enters the water becomes part of a vast, interconnected ecosystem, often unaware of the silent dramas unfolding just beneath their feet. However, beneath the shimmering surface lies a complex ecosystem where predators like sharks are essential apex hunters. These creatures have evolved over hundreds of millions of years, perfectly adapted to their environment, moving with a grace and efficiency that is both mesmerizing and intimidating. Shark attacks, while statistically rare, capture our deepest fears because they represent a complete loss of control, a confrontation with a powerful predator in its own element. The mere sight of a dorsal fin slicing through the water can send chills down the spine, evoking images of sudden violence and helplessness. Understanding the circumstances that lead to these encounters is, honestly, key to mitigating the risk and replacing fear with informed respect for these magnificent and often misunderstood creatures. Marine biologists and seasoned divers spend years studying shark behavior, learning to read the subtle cues and patterns that govern their interactions with the world. Many shark attacks are not predatory in the sense of a human being hunted for food. Instead, they are often the result of confusion or curiosity, a brief and sometimes tragic intersection of two very different worlds. Often, they are cases of mistaken identity, territorial defense, or, simple curiosity. Sharks rely on their senses to interpret their environment, and in the dynamic, ever-changing ocean, mistakes can happen in the blink of an eye. In the murky, turbulent waters of a surf zone, the silhouette of a surfer on a board can closely resemble that of a seal or sea lion, a shark's natural prey. The interplay of light and shadow, the churning foam and the unpredictable movement of waves all contribute to a perfect storm of confusion for a hunting shark. Tyler Brooks, a surfer in Ponce Inlet, Florida, was attacked by a bull shark in August 2014. That morning, the beach was alive with the usual energy of summer, surfers waxing their boards, the salty air thick with anticipation, and the distant rumble of thunder from a passing storm. The water was murky from a recent storm, conditions that also drove bait fish into the shallows, attracting predators. Schools of silvery fish darted through the surf, their frantic movements sending ripples of excitement through the food chain. In that low-visibility environment, the shark likely made a split-second mistake, a test bite on an object it could not clearly identify, with tragic consequences for the young man. The chaos that followed was a stark reminder of how quickly a day at the beach can turn into a fight for survival. Other encounters are triggered by specific human activities, such as spearfishing. The act of hunting underwater, of pursuing and capturing prey, can send powerful signals through the water, signals that sharks are finely tuned to detect. In November 2017, Marcus Thompson was spearfishing near Key Largo when he was attacked by a bull shark. The day had started with calm seas and clear skies, the kind of conditions that draw divers from across the state to the vibrant reefs of the Florida Keys. He had just speared a large amberjack, and the struggling, bleeding fish sent out powerful signals that attracted the predator. The water around him clouded with blood, a beacon to any nearby shark that a meal was within reach. The shark likely saw Marcus not as prey, but as competition for the fish he had just caught. In the wild, competition for food is fierce, and sharks are not shy about asserting their dominance when an easy meal is at stake. The attack was a swift, decisive action to claim a meal. In a matter of seconds, the calm of the reef was shattered by a burst of speed and power, a reminder of the shark's role as a top predator. This incident highlights how certain activities can inadvertently mimic the natural feeding scenarios that provoke a competitive or predatory response from a shark, dramatically increasing the risk of a dangerous interaction. The underwater world is a place of constant negotiation, where every movement and every drop of blood can have far-reaching consequences. The tragic death of a dive instructor off the coast of Jupiter, Florida, in June 2015 adds another layer of complexity. He was a seasoned professional, respected in the diving community for his knowledge and calm under pressure. He was leading a dive in a known shark aggregation site when an unseen injured barracuda nearby attracted a large tiger shark. The barracuda, wounded and bleeding, sent out distress signals that travelled far and wide, drawing the attention of every predator in the vicinity. The shark, its predatory instincts triggered by the distressed fish, perceived the instructor as competition and attacked. The suddenness of the event left little time for reaction, underscoring the unpredictable nature of the ocean. His death led to new dive protocols in the region, emphasizing the need to scan the area for any distressed marine life before initiating a shark encounter dive. Dive leaders now stress the importance of vigilance, preparation, and respect for the creatures that call these waters home. These stories teach us that entering the ocean requires situational awareness. Every decision, from where to swim to how to behave in the water, can influence the outcome of an encounter with a shark. It means understanding water conditions, avoiding areas where sharks are actively feeding, and recognizing that our activities can send unintended signals in a world where, frankly, we are far from the top of the food chain. The ocean demands respect, and those who venture into its depths must do so with knowledge, caution, and humility. There is a certain magnetic pull to the idea of owning something untamed and magnificent, a tiger, a lion, or even a jaguar. For some, the fantasy of sharing their home with a creature of raw power and primal beauty is irresistible. The image of a man stroking the striped fur of a tiger in his backyard, or standing proudly beside a lion pacing in a cramped suburban enclosure, is both surreal and deeply unsettling. These scenes, often captured in shaky home videos, reveal a world where the boundaries between wild and domestic are dangerously blurred. In neighborhoods across America, individuals build their own cages and enclosures, often with little more than chain-link fencing and plywood. Convinced that their bond with these apex predators is special, they see themselves as protectors, sometimes even as amateur conservationists. But the reality is far more perilous. Without formal training or adherence to safety protocols, these makeshift sanctuaries become ticking time bombs. The animals, despite years of hand-feeding and affection, remain wild at heart, creatures whose instincts are honed by millennia of evolution. The decision to keep a big cat as a pet is not just a personal risk, it is a gamble with the lives of family, neighbors, and the first responders who will inevitably be called when things go wrong. Consider the haunting case of Elijah Brantley in Scottsville, Kentucky. On a stormy March day in 2018, Elijah, a man known for his fascination with big cats, decided to show off his prized possession. A massive 350-pound Bengal tiger named Kilo. The animal was kept illegally, hidden away in a dimly lit shed on the edge of his rural property, far from the eyes of authorities. The shed itself was a patchwork of metal bars and wooden planks, hastily constructed and woefully inadequate for containing such a powerful predator. That day Elijah brought his relatives to witness the spectacle, perhaps hoping to impress them with his supposed mastery over the beast. As thunder rumbled outside, he approached the enclosure, confident in his ability to control Kilo. The door was unlatched, a critical oversight. The tiger, agitated by the storm and the unfamiliar presence of visitors, paced restlessly. In a split second, the animal's instincts took over. With a sudden, explosive movement, Kilo lunged, clamping his massive jaws around Elijah's neck. The attack was swift and merciless. Elijah was killed instantly. When authorities arrived, they found the tiger feeding on his remains, a grim tableau that underscored the catastrophic consequences of ignoring the true nature of wild animals. The scene was a direct result of reckless overconfidence and a complete disregard for even the most basic safety measures. Another chilling example unfolded in the arid landscape of New Mexico. Tyler Qualls, a retired Army medic, had always been drawn to the mystique of wild animals. He established a micro-sanctuary on his property, determined to prove that a man could forge a bond with a black jaguar named Nena. Tyler rejected the advice of professionals, including a pointed warning from a wildlife veterinarian who cautioned that Nena was entering a pre-estrus state, a time when big cats are notoriously unpredictable and aggressive. Undeterred, Tyler organized an open house in September 2017, inviting friends and acquaintances to witness his connection with the jaguar. Barefoot and carrying a bucket of raw chicken, he entered the enclosure, speaking softly to Nena as he had done countless times before. For a moment the animal seemed calm, pacing the perimeter of the small pen. But as Tyler turned his back, Nena's demeanor shifted. In a flash the jaguar pounced, its powerful jaws crushing Tyler's spine. The attack was brutal and efficient. Within minutes Tyler was dead. Responders, unable to safely approach, were forced to shoot the jaguar to recover his body. The tragedy was a direct result of Tyler's unwavering belief in his own abilities, a fatal miscalculation that cost both his life and the life of the animal he claimed to cherish. These harrowing stories reveal a troubling gap in regulation and a profound misunderstanding of what it means to live alongside wild animals. In both the Brantley and Qualls cases, the law offered little recourse. Loopholes in state statutes meant that few, if any, charges were filed. The aftermath sparked public outrage, with protests and calls for reform echoing through local communities. In some regions, these tragedies led to tighter restrictions and new legislation, but the underlying problem persists. The belief that a wild predator can be tamed, that a man's willpower or affection can override millions of years of instinct. True sanctuaries, accredited, professionally staffed, and designed with the animal's welfare in mind, are the only places where these magnificent creatures belong. The private ownership of big cats is not an act of love or conservation. It is an act of ego, one that too often ends in heartbreak, loss, and preventable tragedy. In those harrowing moments when the wild unpredictability of nature collides with human life, the true depths of the human spirit are revealed. The wilderness, with its ancient silence and sudden violence, becomes the stage for acts of unimaginable courage. Amid the chaos and primal fear that erupts during a sudden animal attack, there are those who do not flee or freeze. Instead, they are driven by an instinct that transcends self-preservation, a willingness to risk everything for another. These are the stories of fathers, teachers, and brothers who, without a moment's hesitation, step between a powerful predator and someone they care for. Their actions are not the result of careful calculation, but of a deep, almost primal urge to protect. In the face of nature's raw fury, teeth, claws, and overwhelming force, these men become living shields, their courage shining brightest in the darkest moments. Some of these heroes did not survive their encounters, but their final acts ensure the survival of others. Their legacies are etched not only in stone, but in the lives they saved and the stories that endure long after the tragedy. One of the most moving examples of such heroism is the story of Paul Reyes, a dedicated history teacher from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Known for his passion for teaching and his deep love for his family, Paul was a man who believed in the power of knowledge and the importance of protecting those in his care. On a warm August morning in 2012, Paul set out for a run along a rugged trail in the foothills outside Albuquerque. The sun filtered through the pines, casting long shadows across the path. He was accompanied by his brother and his teenage son, both eager to enjoy the beauty of the American Southwest. But that peaceful outing was shattered in an instant when an escaped African lion, a massive predator weighing nearly 400 pounds, emerged from the underbrush. The lion's golden eyes locked onto the group, its muscles rippling beneath its tawny coat. In that split second, Paul's mind raced. He knew there was no time to think, only to act. His paternal instinct surged, overwhelming any fear for his own safety. With a shout, Paul shoved his son out of the lion's path, placing himself directly between the predator and his family. He made himself the most immediate and accessible target, drawing the lion's attention away from his loved ones. The lion lunged, its powerful jaws clamping down with devastating force. Paul fought with every ounce of strength he had, buying precious seconds for his brother and son to escape. The struggle was brutal and desperate, the sounds of the attack echoing through the trees. Emergency responders arrived and rushed Paul to the hospital, but the injuries were too severe. He died hours later in surgery. Yet his son and brother were unharmed, saved by Paul's selfless bravery. Paul's final act was one of pure, selfless love, a father's ultimate gift to his child and family. His sacrifice became a symbol of the extraordinary lengths a man will go to protect those he loves. Another story of remarkable courage unfolded on a humid afternoon in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at Magnolia Elementary School. The playground, usually filled with laughter and games, became the scene of a life-or-death struggle. In the aftermath of a devastating hurricane, floodwaters had driven wildlife into the city. An 8.5-foot alligator, displaced and disoriented, found its way onto the school grounds. As the massive reptile slithered across the playground, panic erupted among the children. Darnell Price, the school's physical education teacher, saw the danger and did not hesitate. Instead of running away, he sprinted toward the threat, his only thought to protect the children in his care. As the alligator lunged toward a group of second graders, Coach Price charged forward, shoving a boy out of the reptile's path. In that instant, he placed himself directly in harm's way, his body becoming a barrier between the children and the deadly jaws. The alligator snapped its powerful jaws around Coach Price's leg, dragging him to the ground. The pain was excruciating, but he refused to let go, determined to keep the children safe until help arrived. The attack left Coach Price with permanent, life-changing injuries. His leg was crushed and his career as a PE teacher was over. Yet he survived, and the children he protected were unharmed, forever indebted to his bravery. Coach Price's sacrifice did not go unnoticed. He became a hero to his students and community, honored for his willingness to put himself in danger for the sake of others. These stories of heroism offer a powerful counter-narrative to the fear and horror that often surround animal attacks. They remind us that, even in the most terrifying circumstances, there is room for extraordinary bravery. The faces of these men, etched with determination and resolve, stand as a testament to the strength of the human spirit. The actions of Paul Reyes and Coach Price were not the result of careful planning. They were instinctual, immediate, and utterly selfless, split-second decisions that changed lives forever. When faced with a threat to someone more vulnerable, these men responded with courage, choosing to protect others regardless of the cost to themselves. As we strive to prevent such tragedies, we must also honor the memory and courage of those who faced the worst of nature and chose to be a shield for others. Their stories remind us of the extraordinary power of selfless sacrifice. Every tragic encounter between humans and wildlife leaves behind more than just grief. It leaves behind invaluable, albeit painful, lessons. These moments, often marked by shock and sorrow, ripple through families, communities, and the very landscapes where they occur. The aftermath is a time of reflection where the weight of loss is matched only by the determination to ensure such events are not repeated. When the immediate crisis subsides and investigations begin, a meticulous process unfolds. Investigators comb through the scene, piecing together the sequence of events, examining claw marks on trees, scattered belongings, and the subtle signs left by both man and beast. Officials pore over incident reports, searching for patterns in behavior, environmental triggers, and lapses in human judgment that may have contributed to the tragedy. These tragedies act as powerful catalysts for change, forcing communities, park services, and legislative bodies to re-evaluate existing policies and protocols. Town halls fill with concerned citizens, their voices echoing the need for reform. Lawmakers gather, driven by the urgency of recent events, to debate and draft new measures that might prevent future loss. The resulting changes, from new laws regarding exotic pet ownership to updated safety briefings for military divers, are a direct legacy of those who lost their lives. Each signature on a new bill, each revised protocol, is a testament to the resolve to transform tragedy into progress. These improvements are written in blood, serving as a solemn promise to learn from the past to protect the future. The sight of flowers at a memorial or a ranger pausing before outdated signage is a reminder that every rule and warning is born from real, often harrowing experience. The death of a visitor at Lake Louise, caused by a food-conditioned grizzly bear, sent shockwaves through the national park system. Lake Louise, a place of breathtaking alpine beauty, had long been a destination for those seeking the wild majesty of the Rockies. But beneath the tranquil surface, the delicate balance between man and nature was always at risk of tipping. The investigation revealed that the bear, a powerful male grizzly, had been drawn to the campground by the scent of improperly stored food left behind at another site. The animal, already accustomed to associating humans with easy meals, moved silently through the night, overturning containers and foraging for scraps. The tragic encounter that followed was the culmination of a series of small, seemingly harmless mistakes, each one a link in a chain that led to disaster. In response, park authorities launched a comprehensive review of their wildlife management policies. Rangers and biologists gathered, scrutinizing every detail of the incident, from the placement of food storage lockers to the frequency of patrols. The goal was clear: to identify every possible weakness and fortify it against future tragedy. This led to significantly increased fines and the possibility of criminal charges under the National Parks Act for visitors who fail to secure food and other attractants. Rangers now patrol with a new sense of authority, issuing citations and posting updated signs that warn of the consequences of carelessness. The message is unmistakable: the safety of both humans and wildlife depends on vigilance and respect for the rules. Educational campaigns were intensified and campsite patrols became more rigorous. Park visitors are now greeted by vivid posters depicting the dangers of feeding wildlife, and rangers lead group talks at campsites, sharing stories of past incidents and the lessons learned. Patrols move quietly through the night, their presence a deterrent to both careless campers and curious bears. The goal was to aggressively combat the human behaviors that lead to food conditioning, thereby protecting both future visitors and the bears themselves. Every locked food container, every sign warning against feeding wildlife, is a small victory in the ongoing struggle to keep the wild truly wild. Similarly, the escape of the African lion Oilon from a New Mexico safari park, which resulted in the death of Paul Reyes, exposed critical failures in the oversight of captive wildlife facilities. Oilon, a massive male lion with a regal mane and a powerful presence, had been a star attraction. But behind the scenes, cracks in the system were widening. The investigation found that staff shortages and the error of a single employee led to the disaster. On that fateful day, a gate was left unlatched, and Oilon, driven by instinct and opportunity, slipped into an unsecured area. The staff, already stretched thin, could only watch in horror as the situation spiraled out of control. In the wake of this tragedy, the state legislature passed a new bill known as Paul's Law. The law was debated with urgency as lawmakers recounted the details of the incident and the need for stronger safeguards. The governor's signature on the bill marked a turning point for the industry. This law mandated much stricter requirements for facilities housing dangerous exotic animals, including mandatory minimum staffing levels, enhanced enclosure security standards, and more frequent unannounced inspections. Enclosures were retrofitted with reinforced barriers, and staff underwent rigorous new training programs designed to anticipate and prevent every conceivable risk. The park's license was suspended, and its management faced criminal charges, sending a clear message to the entire industry that negligence would have severe consequences. The sight of a closed gate, draped with a suspension notice, became a symbol of accountability, a warning that the cost of complacency could be measured in lives lost. The world of marine recreation has also adapted in response to tragedy. The ocean, with its hidden dangers and unpredictable inhabitants, demands respect and constant vigilance from those who venture beneath its surface. After the death of a dive instructor who was attacked by a tiger shark drawn to an injured barracuda, dive operators in South Florida implemented new safety protocols. The instructor, a seasoned professional, had been leading a group when the sudden appearance of the shark turned a routine dive into a desperate struggle for survival. The incident underscored the unpredictable nature of the sea and the need for constant preparedness. Pre-dive briefings now explicitly include instructions for guides to perform a wide visual scan for any distressed or injured marine life before allowing divers to enter the water for a shark encounter. Guides are trained to read the subtle cues of the ocean, ripples on the surface, the erratic movement of fish, the telltale shadow of a predator lurking below. Likewise, the death of Navy diver Daniel Walsh, who was mistaken for a seal by a great white, led the military to revise its own diving protocols. Daniel, a dedicated serviceman, had been conducting a training exercise in waters known for their shark populations. The attack, swift and brutal, shocked his fellow divers and prompted an immediate overhaul of safety measures. Now all personnel training in high-risk areas must attend mandatory marine wildlife briefings where the habits and dangers of local species are discussed in detail. Each new rule is a lesson learned, a small but vital step toward preventing the next tragedy. Manuals are updated, signs are installed, and the memory of those lost becomes the foundation for a safer future, one where the wild is respected, and every precaution is taken to ensure that man and nature can coexist even in the face of nature's fury. As we look back on the gripping accounts of men facing the raw power of nature, whether it's a lone hiker coming face to face with a grizzly deep in the Rockies, or a group of campers startled by the sudden rustle of a black bear in the shadows, one message rings out with clarity. The path to a safer future is built on a foundation of deep respect for the wild and a steadfast commitment to responsibility. These stories are not simply about animal aggression. They are intricate tales shaped by the choices men make in the wilderness, the mounting pressures on animal habitats, and the frequent gaps in our understanding of the creatures we share the land with. We cannot and should not seek to drive wildlife away or build walls that separate us from the natural world. The forests, rivers, and mountains are not just backdrops for adventure. They are living, breathing ecosystems, home to creatures whose lives are as complex as our own. Instead, we must learn to coexist. This requires a profound shift in our perspective, a willingness to see the world through the eyes of the animals whose paths we cross. We must recognize ourselves not as conquerors of the wild, but as participants in its grand design, subject to its rules and rhythms. Imagine a father and son pausing on a misty morning trail, watching a herd of elk graze in the distance, understanding that their presence is a privilege, not a right. The first pillar of this new approach is education. Picture a ranger, his voice steady and patient, teaching a group of boys about the warning signs of a nearby mountain lion, or explaining the subtle tracks left by a coyote at the edge of a creek. We must actively seek to understand the animals with whom we share our landscapes. This means not just reading about them, but venturing out with binoculars, guidebooks in hand, and listening to the stories of seasoned wildlife experts who have spent years observing the habits of wolves, bears, and alligators. It means learning to read the land, recognizing the fresh tracks of a black bear in the mud, understanding the warning calls of birds when a predator is near, and respecting the invisible boundaries that mark an animal's territory. It means teaching our sons from a young age that wild animals are not cartoon characters or pets, but living beings with instincts and needs. A father might kneel beside his boy, pointing out the safe distance to observe a moose, explaining that respect is the first rule of the wild. Park services, schools, and community organizations play a vital role in spreading this knowledge. Rangers hand out safety brochures at trailheads, local leaders organize seminars on camping safety, and assemblies teach boys the importance of wildlife awareness before they ever set foot in the backcountry. An informed public is a safer public. When every man and boy knows how to secure food at a campsite, follow trail safety signs, and heed the advice of experts, the risk of dangerous encounters drops dramatically. The second pillar is responsibility, both personal and collective. Around the campfire, men discuss the importance of leaving no trace, signing pledges to protect wildlife, and cleaning up every scrap before breaking camp. Personal responsibility means locking food in bear-proof containers, keeping dogs leashed at all times, and never, under any circumstances, feeding a wild animal. These simple actions can mean the difference between a peaceful night and a dangerous encounter. It means making wise choices, like avoiding a swim in a murky lake at dusk when alligators are most active, or giving a wide berth to a mother bear with cubs. These are moments where caution and respect can save lives. Collective responsibility falls to our lawmakers and community planners. In city council meetings, men debate new ordinances to protect both people and animals, while planners design wildlife corridors that allow creatures to move safely through developed areas. This means enacting and enforcing strong regulations against the private ownership of dangerous exotic pets, building wildlife, crossing bridges over highways, and funding management programs that focus on preventing conflict before it starts. Ultimately, the goal is to foster a culture of cohabitation. Imagine a community event where fathers and sons gather to celebrate the wild, sharing stories of close calls and lessons learned, all while living side by side with the creatures that call these lands home. This means accepting that bears will roam the forests, alligators will bask in the swamps, and sharks will hunt along the reefs. These animals are not intruders. They are essential parts of the world we inhabit. Our role is not to challenge their existence, but to adapt our own behavior. Men who follow safety guidelines, stay on marked trails, and teach their sons to do the same help ensure that both people and animals can thrive. By replacing ignorance with knowledge, arrogance with humility, and carelessness with caution, we can dramatically reduce the frequency of tragic encounters. Every lesson learned, every precaution taken is a step toward harmony. The future of our relationship with the wild depends not on our ability to dominate it, but on our wisdom to respect it. Picture a group of men standing quietly at sunset, admiring the vastness of the landscape, knowing that their actions today shape the world their sons will inherit. It is a shared world, and only through mutual respect, man to animal and man to man, can we ensure the safety and survival of all its inhabitants. The wild endures, and so must our respect for it. Gap 2S. Even as we strive for respect and responsibility in the wild, there remain incidents so rare, so utterly unexpected, that they become the stuff of legend, cautionary tales whispered around campfires or recounted in hushed tones at ranger stations. These are the stories that defy easy explanation, where the line between myth and reality blurs, and the wild reminds us that it is still full of surprises. Consider the case of the Florida man who found himself face to face not with an alligator or panther, but a massive Burmese python, an invasive species that has quietly established itself in the Everglades. Early one morning, while clearing debris from a flooded trail, he stumbled upon the serpent, coiled and ready to strike. With no time to retreat, he relied on quick thinking, using a sturdy branch to keep the python at bay until help arrived. It was a stark reminder that the wild can change in unexpected ways, and that new threats can slither in from the shadows. Or take the chilling account from Oklahoma, where a group of friends exploring a remote cave system encountered a swarm of bats infected with rabies. At first the bats seemed harmless, fluttering overhead as the men navigated the narrow passages, but the situation quickly escalated when a few members of the group were bitten. The men's knowledge of first aid and their decision to seek immediate medical attention was all that stood between them and a deadly outcome. This rare event underscored the importance of readiness, even for dangers that seem improbable. In the Pacific Northwest, a seasoned hiker came across a massive bull elk during rutting season. The animal, disoriented by the scent of a nearby wildfire, charged without warning. The man's only defense was his backpack, held out as a shield as he backed slowly away, heart pounding. Moments like these reveal the unpredictable side of the wild, where even those with years of experience can find themselves in sudden peril. Even more unusual are the encounters with creatures seldom seen, like the armadillo in Texas that, when startled, leapt several feet into the air, colliding with a man riding an ATV. The impact sent both sprawling, a bizarre and painful lesson in the unpredictable ways animals might react when frightened or confused by human presence. And then there are the tales that seem almost unbelievable. The man fishing off the coast of Maine who was nipped by a curious seal, or the rancher in the Midwest who found himself cornered by an aggressive wild turkey during mating season. Each story is a testament to the diversity of wildlife in America and the reality that danger doesn't always come from the largest or most fearsome creatures. These rare and unusual incidents remind us that the wild is not governed by our expectations. It is a realm of endless possibility, where even the most experienced outdoorsman can be caught off guard. They also reinforce the need for humility, preparation, and a willingness to adapt. No one can predict every twist and turn that nature may take, but by staying vigilant, learning from past encounters, and respecting the unpredictability of the wild, we can better protect ourselves and the creatures we share this land with. As the sun sets on another day in the great American wilderness, remember, it's not just the bears, sharks, or alligators that demand caution. Sometimes it's the creatures we least expect and the moments that catch us most off guard that leave the deepest mark. The wild is full of oddities, and every man who ventures out must be ready for whatever story the land decides to tell next. For every headline-grabbing animal attack, there's a quieter story that unfolds in the days, months, and years that follow, one of survival, resilience, and the long road to recovery. These are the stories seldom told, where the true test begins not in the wild but in the aftermath. Take the case of a Colorado fisherman mauled by a mountain lion while hiking a remote trail at dawn. The scars on his arms and shoulders tell one story, but the deeper wounds, nightmares, sudden flashes of fear at the sound of rustling leaves are harder to see. Yet with time, therapy, and the support of fellow survivors, he found a new sense of purpose. He now leads safety workshops for local hikers, transforming his trauma into hard-earned wisdom for others venturing into the backcountry. In Florida, a professional diver who survived a shark bite faced not only physical rehabilitation, but the daunting challenge of returning to the ocean that nearly claimed his life. Months of surgery and physical therapy were matched by his determination to overcome his fear. His first dive back was a quiet affair, just him, the water, and the memory of what happened. Emerging from the waves, he found not just healing, but a renewed respect for the creatures of the deep. Now he educates others about shark behavior, hoping to prevent future encounters while promoting understanding. Then there's the story of a Texas ranch hand gored by a wild boar during a midnight patrol. The attack left him with a limp and a new perspective. While the pain lingered, he refused to let anger or fear take root. Instead, he learned the habits of wild boars, adapting his routines and teaching others how to spot the warning signs before it's too late. His experience became a bridge between ranchers and wildlife officials, fostering cooperation in a landscape where both must coexist. In the forests of Maine, a camper who survived a black bear attack found his recovery marked by small victories. A steady hand, a night spent outdoors without panic, a laugh shared over a campfire. Community support groups, formed by men who'd faced similar dangers, became a lifeline. Together they swapped stories, shared coping strategies, and found strength in the knowledge that recovery is rarely a straight path. Every survivor's journey is different, but each story is united by a sense of humility and a drive to make meaning from adversity. These men, shaped by their encounters, have become advocates, educators, and mentors. Their scars are not just reminders of what happened, but symbols of what's possible when resilience meets compassion, for themselves, for their communities, and for the wild. As these stories remind us, the aftermath of an animal attack is not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter, one where survival is just the start, and every day brings another chance to heal, to learn, and to help others walk the path from fear to understanding. When a call crackles over the radio, possible animal attack, need immediate assistance, a different kind of hero springs into action. Behind the stories of survival and recovery are the unsung men whose expertise and courage shape the outcome from the very first moments. Wildlife experts and first responders form a crucial bridge between chaos and calm, using their knowledge and training to save lives, both human and animal. Picture a paramedic in rural Montana, racing down a winding dirt road at dawn. He's trained for car crashes and cardiac arrests, but today's emergency is different. A hiker mauled by a grizzly. His truck is stocked not only with bandages and tourniquets, but with a specialized field guide on animal-inflicted injuries. He arrives to find the victim in shock, bleeding but alive. Calmly, he assesses the wounds, stemming the blood while offering steady, quiet reassurance. Every action, every word, is calculated to keep panic at bay. Meanwhile, a state wildlife officer is already tracking the bear. Years of experience taught him to read the forest like a book. The broken branches, fresh paw prints, and the faint, musky scent of bear fur. His job is not just to protect the public, but to ensure the animal is handled humanely. Armed with tranquilizer darts and a deep respect for the wild, he works methodically, balancing safety with the knowledge that every decision could mean life or death for both man and beast. In the Florida Everglades, a team of reptile specialists responds to a call about a python attack. Moving with precision honed by countless rescues, they navigate the tangled undergrowth. Always alert for danger, their tools are simple: snake hooks, secure bags, and years of hard-won intuition. When they find the injured man, one expert gently secures the python while the other tends to the bites, their teamwork a silent choreography born from trust and shared purpose. Back at the scene of a shark bite on the California coast, a lifeguard, trained in both ocean rescue and marine biology, leads the charge. He spots the victim, pulls him from the surf, and immediately applies a tourniquet while radioing for backup. Even as he checks the wounds, his eyes scan the horizon for signs of the shark, ready to warn others if needed. Later, wildlife biologists analyze the incident. Through forensic examination of bite patterns, tracks, and environmental clues, they reconstruct what happened. Their findings shape future safety protocols, helping to teach others how to avoid similar dangers. Though their faces rarely make the news, these men are the linchpins in every animal encounter. They carry the weight of split-second decisions, balancing empathy with expertise. Their work doesn't end when the victim is safe. Often they return to educate communities, refine response plans, and advocate for coexistence. In every wild moment, from forest to sea, these guardians stand ready. They are the steady hands that turn panic into hope, the quiet professionals who ensure that when worlds collide, compassion and knowledge prevail. As the seasons grow less predictable and landscapes transform, a silent force is reshaping the ancient dance between humans and wildlife. Across America, climate change is rewriting the rules, altering animal behavior, migration, and, in some cases, increasing the odds of dangerous encounters. Picture a veteran park ranger in Alaska, his boots crunching through permafrost that year by year softens earlier in spring. He's noticed the bears emerging from hibernation weeks ahead of schedule, hungry and disoriented. With salmon runs delayed by warming waters, the animals wander closer to rural towns, scavenging for scraps and crossing paths with people in ways they never did before. In the arid southwest, a seasoned wildlife biologist tracks a mountain lion through a landscape parched by drought. Rivers that once served as natural boundaries have dried up, forcing predators to roam into suburbs in search of water and prey. One evening, a homeowner calls in panic, his dog snatched from the backyard. The biologist arrives to investigate, piecing together the evidence: paw prints in the dust, the faint scent of fear lingering in the air. He explains to the shaken man that these encounters are becoming more common as the desert grows harsher and food scarce. Along the Gulf Coast, a fisherman who spent decades on the bayou steers his boat through murky rising waters. Hurricanes, more frequent and severe, have flooded salt marshes, driving alligators and venomous snakes into neighborhoods that never worried about such threats before. He remembers a recent storm and when a panicked call came in. A child bitten by a displaced cottonmouth. The fisherman helped guide first responders through the labyrinth of flooded streets, his local knowledge now more vital than ever. Further north, a forestry officer in New England studies the spread of ticks and the deer that carry them. Warmer winters mean the tick population explodes and deer wander further into town centres, bringing the parasites and the threat of Lyme disease along with them. The officer sets up trail cameras, reviewing the footage with a mix of fascination and concern as he sees more deer, coyotes, and even black bears crossing highways under the cover of darkness. These men, shaped by years in the wild, bear witness to a world in flux. They adapt, learning to anticipate new patterns and dangers. Their stories reveal how climate change doesn't just reshape landscapes, it blurs the boundaries between wild and human spaces, increasing the risk of unexpected, sometimes tragic, encounters. Yet in each challenge there is a lesson. By studying these shifting patterns, these guardians help communities prepare, developing new warning systems, updating safety protocols, and educating the public about the changing face of wildlife. Their vigilance and adaptability are the first line of defense in a world where the old rhythms are fading, replaced by new and unpredictable harmonies. As the planet warms, the story of man and animal continues, more intertwined and more uncertain than ever before. As the boundaries between human life and the animal kingdom blur, a silent revolution unfolds, not in the wild but in the labs, workshops and field stations across America. The evolution of safety protocols and technology is now on the front lines, adapting faster than ever to the unpredictable rhythms of nature. Picture a seasoned wildlife officer in Montana, his uniform weathered by years of patrol, standing beside a newly installed smart warning system on a remote hiking trail. At his hip, not just a radio, but a rugged tablet connected to motion-triggered cameras and AI-powered sensors hidden among the pines. These devices scan for movement patterns unique to grizzlies, sending real-time alerts to his team and to hikers' phones before an encounter can turn deadly. In Florida's Everglades, a gator wrangler reviews drone footage from above the marsh. The drones, equipped with thermal imaging, glide silently at dusk, pinpointing the heat signatures of alligators drifting toward residential canals after a heavy rain. The wrangler overlays this data on a digital map, sending text alerts to local fishermen and residents. The system, once experimental, has become indispensable, saving lives and giving the wrangler a fighting chance to divert wildlife before disaster strikes. Out west, a park ranger in California trains new recruits on a virtual reality simulator. The room is filled with the sense of pine and dust as the simulator immerses trainees in lifelike encounters, charging elk, prowling mountain lions, or startled rattlesnakes. Every decision, every hesitation is recorded and analyzed. Mistakes become lessons, and lessons become protocols. The ranger, once reliant on memory and instinct, now arms his team with data-driven drills and muscle memory forged in the digital wild. Meanwhile, in the Midwest, a veteran game warden installs ultrasonic deterrents along a stretch of rural highway notorious for deer collisions. The devices emit frequencies undetectable to humans, startling deer away from the roadside. Night after night, the warden reviews dashcam footage and collision reports, fine-tuning the placement of each device. The results are tangible: fewer accidents, fewer tragedies, and a new standard for coexistence on America's roads. Each innovation is born from necessity and from stories of close calls and hard lessons, but technology alone is not enough. These men know that protocols must evolve too. Every incident is logged, dissected, and shared across agencies. A bear encounter in Wyoming leads to a new signage protocol in Colorado. A coyote sighting in Texas prompts a rapid response training in Arizona. Knowledge flows as swiftly as the rivers that once kept wild and human worlds apart. In this new era, vigilance is shared. The old ways, tracks in the mud, a distant howl, a warning shout, are now joined by digital eyes and instant communication. The men on the front lines become stewards of both tradition and innovation, blending gut instinct with the latest advances, ever watchful as the dance between man and beast grows more intricate. As the world changes, so too does our response. The story of animal encounters in America is no longer just about survival. It's about adaptation, foresight, and the unyielding drive to protect both people and the wild places they love. Long after the headlines fade and the physical wounds begin to heal, the true impact of an animal attack lingers, often invisible yet deeply felt. For survivors and the communities around them, these encounters become more than just stories. They shape memories, habits, and even entire ways of life. Picture a young fisherman in the Pacific Northwest, his hands once steady and sure, now trembling as he approaches the riverbank where a bear charged him months before. Each morning he laces his boots, a ritual weighted with anxiety. The gurgle of the stream, once soothing, now sparks a rush of adrenaline. He scans the undergrowth, replaying the moment of the attack, heart pounding in anticipation of a threat that may never come. His friends notice the change. He's quieter, his laughter less frequent. They try to draw him out with stories of close calls and narrow escapes, but the shadows in his eyes remain. In a small mountain town, the local diner sits unusually empty after a mountain lion attack on a popular trail. The men who once gathered here, swapping hunting tales and weather predictions, now avoid the subject entirely. Conversations are cautious, glances linger at the windows, and every creak of a branch outside draws nervous glances. The incident becomes a silent presence, shaping the way doors are locked at night and how children are taught to move in the woods, never alone, always alert. For a wildlife officer in the Midwest, the aftermath is quieter but no less profound. Each time he reviews a report of an animal encounter gone wrong, a sense of responsibility gnaws at him. What warning did he miss? What sign went unheeded? He spends evenings replaying body cam footage, searching for the detail that could have changed the outcome. Sleep comes fitfully, haunted by what-ifs and the faces of those he could not protect. Some survivors turn their fear into action. A park ranger, once ambushed by a wolf pack, now leads safety workshops for new recruits. He shares his story not to terrify but to prepare. Yet when the room grows quiet during the retelling, he feels the old fear flicker within him, a reminder that the wild is unpredictable, and so is the mind's response to trauma. In every corner of America, these hidden scars shape the human side of animal encounters. They foster caution, sometimes bordering on paranoia, but also resilience and solidarity. Communities come together to support those affected, organizing patrols, sharing knowledge, and honoring those lost. Over time, the stories evolve. The pain becomes part of the landscape, a quiet lesson etched into daily routines and local law. The dance between man and beast leaves marks seen and unseen. And while innovation and policy may pave the way for safer futures, the psychological aftermath is a reminder. Coexistence comes not just with risk, but with a profound need for empathy, understanding, and healing, for those who walk the wild places and for those who wait for them to come home. When the dust settles after a high-profile animal attack, the search for answers often leads to the courtroom and the legislature. Across America, laws have been rewritten and policies reshaped, sometimes in the wake of a single unforgettable tragedy. Imagine a coastal town in Florida, where a notorious alligator attack on a teenage boy sent shockwaves through the community. The incident dominated headlines, but it was what happened afterwards that would change the landscape forever. Town meetings grew tense, with fathers and sons packing the pews, voices raised in frustration and fear. Local lawmakers, once content with loose regulations, now found themselves pressed for swift action. Within months, new ordinances required stricter fencing around water bodies, mandatory warning signs, and government-sponsored removal of nuisance gators. The boy's father became a fixture at council meetings, urging fellow residents to never let their guard down, his grief and his determination impossible to ignore. In rural Texas, a series of fatal encounters with escaped exotic cats sparked a legal reckoning. Ranchers, long accustomed to wide open spaces and personal responsibility, suddenly faced a new reality. Their neighbors' private menageries posed risks no one had anticipated. After a tragic incident where a young man was mauled by a tiger on a back road, the state legislature convened an emergency session. Testimony came from first responders, shaken by what they'd seen, and local men whose livelihoods depended on livestock now threatened by predators that didn't belong. The resulting law, one of the strictest in the nation, banned private ownership of big cats, imposed steep penalties for violations, and mandated microchipping for all exotic animals. The law bore the young man's name, a permanent reminder etched into the legal code. In the Pacific Northwest, a bear attack on a fisherman prompted a federal review of wildlife management protocols. The incident, caught on a hunter's trail cam, went viral, sparking debate from logging camps to city council chambers. The fisherman, his hand still bandaged, testified before Congress, describing the moment of terror and the aftermath, the endless paperwork, the medical bills, the sleepless nights. His words cut through the noise, leading to the creation of a new federal grant program for communities bordering wild habitats. Funds were allocated for bear-proof trash cans, educational outreach, and rapid response teams trained to handle wildlife emergencies. Not all changes come easily. In a small Appalachian town, resistance to new wolf management laws ran deep. After a series of livestock attacks, tempers flared at town hall meetings. Old-timers argued that government overreach threatened their way of life, while others, having witnessed the devastation firsthand, demanded stricter controls. The debate split the community, but ultimately led to a compromise: a state-funded compensation program for animal losses, paired with new tracking and reporting requirements for wolf populations. In each of these places, laws and policies are more than words on paper. They are the legacy of lives forever altered. The faces behind the statutes are fathers, sons, brothers, and friends, each carrying a story that shaped the rules everyone must follow. For every headline-grabbing attack, there is a ripple effect, new safety protocols, heightened awareness, and sometimes hard-won unity in the face of loss. These are the stories of how tragedy writes the law, and how the law in turn seeks to prevent history from repeating itself. The balance between freedom, responsibility, and safety is fragile, forged in the aftermath of encounters that no one can forget. In this ongoing dialogue between man and nature, every statute is a chapter, every policy a promise, that lessons written in blood will not be in vain. After the headlines fade and the legal dust settles, a different kind of story unfolds, one that rarely makes the evening news. Beyond the chaos of animal attacks and the clamor for policy change, there is a quiet, determined effort to heal what has been broken. This is the realm of animal rescue and rehabilitation, where second chances are forged from the ashes of tragedy. Picture a dawn in the Louisiana bayou, heavy with mist. In the aftermath of a harrowing alligator attack, a team of wildlife specialists launches a skiff onto the water. Their mission is not retribution, but rescue. The offending gator, wounded and disoriented, has retreated deep into the reeds. The men work in silence, guided by years of experience and a deep respect for the animal's place in the ecosystem. With careful hands they secure the creature, its powerful jaws bound safely. Instead of euthanasia, the gator is transported to a sanctuary where it will spend its days in monitored wetlands, away from human settlements. For the boy whose life was changed, meeting the gator again, this time from behind the safety of a fence, offers a measure of closure and a lesson in forgiveness. Hundreds of miles away in the rolling hills of Montana, a black bear involved in a campsite encounter is tranquilized and airlifted by helicopter to a remote rehabilitation center. Here a group of biologists and animal behaviorists observe the bear's recovery, tracking his adaptation to a new, safer habitat. The bear, once feared and vilified, becomes a subject of study, his movements, diet, and interactions, teaching researchers how to prevent future conflict. In time, The bear is released deep into the wilderness, fitted with a GPS collar, his journey monitored by those who believe every life deserves a second act. In the heart of Texas, a young mountain lion, orphaned after a livestock incident, is discovered by ranchers. Rather than seek vengeance, they call in the local wildlife rescue. The men work through the night, constructing a temporary enclosure and feeding the cub by hand. Over weeks, the animal is slowly reintroduced to the wild, its progress tracked through motion-activated cameras. The ranchers, once wary, become advocates for coexistence, sharing their experience at town halls and urging others to call for help, not harm. Not every story ends with release. In a specialized facility outside Atlanta, rescued exotic cats, victims of both attack and neglect, find sanctuary. Here, caretakers tend to injuries, both visible and invisible. Some of the animals, too traumatized to return to the wild, become ambassadors for education, teaching schoolboys and local ranchers alike about the dangers and responsibilities of living alongside powerful predators. Throughout America, these stories play out quietly day after day. Wildlife officers, veterinarians, and volunteers work in the shadows, rescuing, rehabilitating, and sometimes rehoming the very animals at the heart of tragedy. Their work is driven not by fame or fear, but by a belief that every encounter, no matter how dire, can be transformed into an opportunity for understanding and renewal. These are the unsung chapters where hope is rebuilt one life at a time. In the delicate dance between man and beast, it is here, in the hands of those who choose mercy over vengeance, that true healing begins. When an animal attack occurs, the world often learns of it not through first-hand experience, but through screens and headlines. The media serves as both witness and storyteller, wielding the power to shape public perception in profound ways. But what happens between the facts and the footage? How does coverage mold our understanding of the wild and our place within it? Picture the flashing lights of a local news van parked just beyond yellow caution tape. A cameraman adjusts his lens, capturing the battered gate where a bear broke through, the claw marks still fresh in the wood. The broadcast opens with urgent music, the anchor's voice somber and commanding. A community in shock after a shocking animal attack. Details at 6. The facts are there, but so too is a narrative crafted for maximum impact. The predator, the victim, the danger lurking just beyond the suburbs. As the story spreads, footage loops across national networks. Social media erupts with speculation and fear. Viral posts share grainy cell phone videos, their captions warning of threats to children and pets. The incident, once isolated, becomes a symbol, a cautionary tale replayed across dinner tables and digital feeds. For days, the community is defined by what happened, the animal by what it did, but not all coverage is equal. In a small radio studio, a wildlife biologist sits across from a host, his voice steady as he explains the bear's behavior, the pressures of habitat loss, the simple mistakes that can escalate into tragedy. His words cut through the panic, offering context and calm, yet his message reaches far fewer ears than the sensational headlines. Meanwhile, documentary filmmakers venture into the aftermath, their cameras lingering on the empty campsite, the muddy tracks leading back into the forest. They interview first responders, wildlife officers, and the survivor, each recounting the event with nuance and reflection. The finished film does not sensationalize. Instead, it humanizes both the people and the animal, inviting viewers to look beyond fear and into the heart of coexistence. Yet, for every thoughtful exploration, there are stories that stoke old fears. Tabloids resurrect legends of rogue predators, while online forums trade rumors and half-truths. Policy debates ignite, fueled by public outcry, sometimes overwhelming scientific voices with the sheer volume of emotion. In this digital age, the media's lens is both magnifier and mirror. It can distort, inflame, or enlighten. It can drive communities to demand change, sometimes for safety, sometimes for retribution. but it can also inspire empathy, funding for rescue missions, and a deeper understanding of the animals that share our world. Ultimately, the stories told by the media become the stories we tell ourselves. They shape laws, guide behavior, and influence the delicate balance between caution and compassion. Whether cast as monsters or misunderstood neighbors, animals depend on the narratives we build around them. In the end, the lens through which we view these encounters may be as powerful as the encounters themselves. Imagine a dawn breaking over a landscape both familiar and changed, a horizon where city skylines blur into green corridors and highways thread carefully around protected wilderness. In this future America, the boundaries between human and animal realms are no longer lines drawn in sand, but living, breathing edges, shifting in response to nature and necessity. Picture a small town in Montana where new technology hums quietly in the background. Smart fences, powered by solar cells and artificial intelligence, detect the approach of a wandering grizzly, sending alerts to local ranchers' phones. Rather than reaching for rifles, they activate harmless deterrents. Flashing lights, recorded sounds of dominant male bears, or scent barriers, the bear, confused but unharmed, lumbers back toward the river, its path guided by invisible boundaries shaped by data and empathy. Elsewhere, in the suburbs of Georgia, a community gathers not to mourn a tragedy, but to celebrate a milestone. A year has passed since the last coyote incident. Children play in a schoolyard protected by wildlife-friendly fencing, while a local conservation officer leads a workshop on understanding animal behavior. He demonstrates how to recognize tracks, how to secure garbage, and most importantly, how to respect the wildlives that share their space. The lessons, once born of fear, are now woven into the fabric of daily life. In Florida, drones equipped with thermal cameras patrol the edge of the Everglades at night, tracking invasive species and helping biologists rescue displaced alligators before they wander into populated areas. The footage streams to a command center where teams of experts, ecologists, engineers, and animal behaviorists work together to predict movements and prevent conflict. Their tools are not just nets and tranquilizers, but algorithms and empathy, blending old wisdom with new science. Meanwhile, in a bustling city park in Oregon, a group of teenagers uses an augmented reality app to see the hidden wildlife around them. The app overlays information onto the landscape, where foxes den, where deer cross, which flowers attract pollinators. The technology, once designed for games, now connects the next generation to the unseen rhythms of the natural world, turning curiosity into stewardship. Yet this future is not without its challenges. As climate shift and urban sprawl continues, new encounters will test the limits of coexistence. There will be moments of fear, of loss, of difficult choices, but there will also be resilience, a willingness to innovate, to adapt, to learn from the past and imagine a better way forward. In this envisioned tomorrow, the story of human-animal coexistence is no longer written in blood or fear, but in collaboration and hope. The wild is not something to be conquered or contained, but to be understood and respected. And as America steps into this new frontier, the promise of harmony rests not just in technology or policy, but in the everyday decisions of those who choose to share the land with their wild neighbors. The future, it turns out, is not about drawing tighter boundaries, but about opening new doors, finding ways for all creatures, great and small, to thrive together on this ever-changing stage.